Hi, me again. Pretty pissed off with the state of the world at the moment. The whole the whole world seems to be on fire at the moment. It's just extraordinary. This Black Lives Matter thing, which is, we've got this woman, this BLM leader in Oxford, can't remember her name, doesn't matter to me, she doesn't matter to me, saying that capitalism is the cause of racism. And I'm sorry, but do any of you sheeple out there who are listening to this and applauding what she is saying actually ask the question of yourselves, let alone of her, in what way does capitalism cause racism? And if capitalism is the big evil thing that causes racism, how come communist China treats its black people so badly? Just recently, a Ghanaian man died because he was refused entry to Chinese hospitals because he was black. That's not capitalists, that's communists doing that. Capitalism actually helps poor people and deprived people more than anybody else, because capitalists know that the only way to progress is to make sure that your workers are happy regardless of their color, and that you have as many customers as possible regardless of their color. So she's talking through a hole situated somewhere below and behind her neck. Anyway, one thing we can say about BLM and COVID-19 is that it's pushed Brexit into the back corner somewhere for a while. We haven't been bombarded every day as we were being about Brexit. We've now just got COVID-19 and now more recently BLM. Well, it's July. The transition period ends at the end of December. We really ought to start thinking again about Brexit and what the other side is trying to do. Michel Barnier said that the UK has been half-hearted in the trade deal negotiations. When he says that, what he really means is that the UK is not giving in to their demands. They have been so used to countries being desperate to join them that they have never heard the word no before. They just can't get their heads around the fact that we are negotiating from a very strong position as an independent sovereign state, and we are not actually a member of the EU. They still think of us as a small country desperate to stay in the EU but asking for special treatment. The EU actually does not want to negotiate. It wants to make its demands and expects us to acquiesce. That's not negotiation, that's bullying. They have listened to ardent and anti-democratic politicians like Nick Clegg, Theresa May, Tony Blair, Uncle Tom Cobley. And not to mention even the mayor of London. You know, none of these people have any authority to negotiate, but of course people like Barnier take heart from the fact that these well-known politicians are singing to his tune, and so it makes him feel good. What he doesn't seem to understand is that they do not represent the majority of British people. They've also taken heart from a biased and lying British press, and they still think that the majority of Brits want to remain. The fact is that we are in a very strong negotiating position. We buy a lot from the EU. The German car markets rely on our purchases, and so do the French. Look around you when you're out and about at the makes of cars on our roads. Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Porsche, Renault, Peugeot, and a few Citroens. Do you believe that they will throw away that market, not to mention cheese and wine from France, Hugo Boss clothes from Germany? We are their biggest and nearest external customer. We also know that no deal will not break us, but staying under the heel of the ECJ in the long term will do us irreparable harm. So bring it on. To quote Barnier, the UK has not shown the same level of engagement and readiness to find solutions, respecting the EU's fundamental principles and interests. I'll just say that again, respecting the EU's fundamental principles and interests. Well, duh, we're looking after our fundamental interest, and our interest, not theirs. Their interests lie in controlling us, because potentially we pose a big threat to them. But the sheer arrogance of Barnier's statement stems from the fact that they can't get their heads round the fact that we are an independent sovereign nation negotiating a trade deal, and we are not a junior member of the EU asking for special treatment. Bear in mind that exports to the EU constitute about 10% of our GDP. Now, when the bank crash came, we lost 10% of our GDP, and it wasn't pleasant, but we survived it. We're not going to lose 10% of our GDP. We're not going to lose all our trade, if any, with the EU, because the EU, as we've just said, relies on us. But frankly, we're buying more from them than they are from us. If you can't get a BMW, buy a car that's made in Britain. Anyway, even if we did lose some of that trade, we'd soon make it up by expanding into new markets. We'd be able to, because without the problems of being under the EU rules, we'd be able to become more competitive, and we'd be able to do better deals with other countries throughout the world, not just stuck in this, EU, because as the little EUers want us to do. Anyway, also bear in mind that the EU market is shrinking in relation to the world economy. When the UK was fooled into joining the organisation that was destined to become the behemoth it now is, the GDP of the 8 members, including ourselves, became over 30% of world GDP. 8 countries, 30% of world GDP. Now there are 27 members, and its GDP is about 17% of world GDP. So they've trebled the number of members and halved their share of GDP. And because of EU protectionism, we in the UK have not been able to tap into the expanding markets in the rest of the world. So Barnier is pushing the level playing field. Now let me explain. The level playing field is a mechanism whereby the EU can stop any member state from becoming more competitive than any other member state. It includes such provisions as no state aid. You may remember that we couldn't bail out our steel industry when China, them again, dumped its cheap steel into Europe. It also regulates industry to the extent that even companies who do not export to other EU states must comply with all EU regulations. Without signing up to the EU level playing field, the UK businesses who do not export to the EU will be able to deregulate and become more competitive. But if we sign up to it, any breach of its terms will result in the ECJ making judgments against us. In other words, they want to control our industry so as to eliminate the threat of what they see as unfair competition. I see it as sensible trading practice with a view to research and development and progress, which is stifled by the level playing field. But to my mind, the biggest arrogance is that pertaining to our fishing grounds. Barnier said that the UK is asking for near total exclusion of EU fishing vessels from the UK waters. That is simply unacceptable, he said. Well, since when was it unacceptable for a country to control its own territory? They might just as well say they have the right to farm our land. It's no different. Barnier said about fishing rights that the UK is making unreasonable demands. Well, I've got some news for you. We aren't making any demands. We're stating a fact. UK waters are UK waters. That means they belong to us and we should control them. And it is the EU that is making unreasonable demands by insisting that they should retain the same rights to our waters that they have now, including the common fisheries policy, which has seen the decimation of fish stocks and the advent of super trawlers hoovering up not just the fish, but the food that sustains them. And they say the EU is supposed to be green. Do you know there is one Dutch trawler that has taken 25% of the UK fishing quotas? One trawler. Meanwhile, our biggest negotiating strength is our ability and our will to walk away without a deal. And even the IMF has now admitted that the UK economy will outstrip the EU economy once we are totally free of the shackles placed there by political ideologists who care not one jot for their people as long as their political dream is fulfilled. Without the constraints of the level playing field, the UK will become more competitive internationally. We will regain our seat at the World Trade Organization. We will be free of protectionist tariffs that increase the cost of our imports. And did you know that when the British housewife buys produce from Africa in the supermarket, it's about 30% more expensive than it needs to be because of the EU tariffs? But the UK does not keep that money paid by the British housewife. 80% of it goes to Brussels, an additional cost to membership of the EU that they haven't told you about. Basically, the UK is asking for a Canada-style agreement, keeping control of our waters and no longer being under the heel of the ECJ, the Common Fisheries Policy, EU tariffs, over-regulation, and a political system which is both anti-democratic and uneconomic. We can also add immigration controls to that list. Without the restraints of the EU mass immigration policy, coupled with the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights, the UK will be in a position properly to control its borders. Of course, this will need a government with the will to actually do something rather than just promise to do something. Now, much as I like Priti Patel, she does a lot of talking, but so far I haven't seen an awful lot of progress. She's made some, but it's too little. Perhaps it's because the EU is still controlling us during the transition period. Perhaps she doesn't wish to jeopardize the trade negotiations. I don't know. But if nothing concrete happens soon after the 31st of December, I shall be campaigning to get a centre-right party into Westminster that will hold the government to account over immigration, and I don't mean the rebranded Brexit party. Just watch this space. See ya.